Good evening, everybody, and happy Thursday night from Unlock the Middle. We are here tonight live, coming across the country, talking to educational leaders and, quite frankly, superintendents to try to bring a different scope to what we talk about on a Thursday night. It's almost at a Friday night. My name is Dean Packard. I am the proud principal of Charlton Middle School in Charlton, Massachusetts. Alongside of me, I have my good friend and co-host, Josh Tovar from the great state of Texas. Josh, how are you before we begin to go around the room tonight?
Hey, everybody. Josh Tovar, proud principal of Memorial Pathway Academy in Garland ISD, Garland, USA. Welcoming everybody to the Red Zone, because you know what? It's football season, and we're ready to rock and roll here on the Red Zone with all this leadership. Check it out. Look below me, next to me, everywhere. Years of knowledge and looking at it from the big picture, from the balcony, making sure that we all learn from each other. That's the whole point of this free PD. Part of the Fantastic Four with Shika, with Coach Hurt, and Principal Cafele. We're all here to provide free PD and learn from each other, because it doesn't matter where you're at, whether you're in Alaska or Hawaii, whether you're in Maine or Florida or in the 48, we're all facing the same adversity. And it's our job to make sure we get together, use our tools for student success, because you know what? They're the future of the United States, our hijos.
Josh, I'm going to tell you what, organizational leadership tonight, away from school-based leadership, we've got a different lens. That's not a bad thing. We start talking about strategic planning, connecting with the state level stuff. So important for schools to be successful. So, enough from us. Let's kind of go around the room here, and let's start off with Rob Sanders. Rob, talk a little bit about who you are, where you're from.
To be here tonight. My name is Rob Sanders, and I'm the superintendent of schools in the Moore 3 school district in Fort Morgan, Colorado. We have about 3,300 student employees, and I just moved over there from a really small Northeast Colorado, which was Merino. I spent 12 years as superintendent of schools there, and about 50 staff members. But this is my 30th year in education. I spent 2 years in Texas, down on the border, down in West Laco, where I taught high school social studies, and then ended up and where I've been a high school principal for 7 years, and now I'm in my 13th year as a superintendent of schools here in Colorado.
Nice, great. I love that trajectory. It sounds like you touched almost all the bases, so good stuff. Welcome aboard. Glad to have you with us tonight. Cindy, welcome to our show. Cindy, a little background about yourself, how you got to where you are, and kind of what you do now.
Good evening, everybody. I currently am in Ector County ISD in Odessa, Texas, and I'm an executive director of leadership right now. So I supervise 10 campuses and 10 principals. Prior to that, all my educational career was in El Paso, Texas. Coming from Socorro ISD, I was an assistant soup. Prior to that, principal at a middle school, high school, K-8, assistant principal, teacher, counselor. So it's been the full gamut of all the way from the classroom and different leadership roles. And it's been at elementary, middle, and high school levels.
Another inside the park home run, touched all the bases. Great stuff, Cindy. Welcome to the show. Ryan, welcome to our show, and tell us a little bit about your background and your rise to power.
Yeah, so Ron Berry from USD 4 Schools, located just north of Wichita, Kansas. Additional educator, graduated with my undergrad, but have a couple of master's degrees as well. High school social studies teacher, turned middle school crazy life that you guys have. It's probably the most rare, but yet maybe the craziest job too. Students and educators and families, but I had opportunity within the same district to come up, and then bam, pandemic hit, and welcome it in the middle of something that they've never prepared you for. So I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, everybody. Just as we get started, and you hit up on it right now, Ron, we talked about the lessons of the last 2 years, and it really doesn't matter what kind of campus you were at, charter, private, pre-K, IB, doesn't matter 1,000 kids or 3,000 kids, 5,000 kids. We were all affected by that disease. So what did you see, or what were your reflections on the lessons that were learned from COVID, Ms. Retana?
I think as as much as we still talk about COVID because we are still in the pandemic. I think there was a lot of good that we learned from the pandemic. And I always said that when things go back to normal, whenever and whatever that was going to be, there were things that we didn't want to throw away that we had to quickly jump into when the pandemic started. And one of them, I think, was the teacher cohesiveness, campus cohesiveness. And I think it dealt with a lot of, as the pandemic came upon us as quickly as it did, and many of us had to scramble into what is virtual learning. And on campuses, across the country, across the world, there were, teachers well versed in technology, some teachers that were not well versed with technology, that hadn't kept abreast of the trainings that were happening or had gone to trainings but didn't really utilize it. I know that I found that as we were leading principals into virtual learning methods and what was that going to look like, and we had no time, right? As we were talking about it, talk about something that would happen the very next day. And so it came with a lot of trial and error. But we found on campuses that teachers really gathered and became cohesive. So those teachers that were not, as I was saying, very technologically savvy, all of a sudden were very close with those that were, and they were helping each other, maneuver their way through this. And so I said, when the pandemic is over and we're back to, again, whatever the new normal was going to be, I hope we don't lose that, the cohesiveness and the newness that we shared. Because we did, like I said, we did a lot of great things from it. We learned what to do and not to do during virtual learning. We're all very happy that we're able to come back in person and have kids face to face, because nothing's going to substitute that. Kids need their teachers. And they need their schools, and they need those places of safety throughout the days, for some kids more than others.
Thank you, Cindy. Hey, Rob, talk to us. What did you learn?
So I'm currently right now up in beautiful Vail, Colorado, at a meeting through our Colorado Association of School Executives. So the question to us, where do you remember where you were in August of 2020, or excuse me, March 2020? And I distinctly remember where I was. We were on Spring, and I remember going out on the street, and that's the quietest I've ever seen. And, we entered into that with a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation. You thought you were going to die if you got it. And so, oh, and by the way, I just had COVID about a month ago, so I'm stuck. But from my perspective, what I learned a lot about my colleagues and a lot about myself, and when I look back on all of it, it probably took about 4 years off my career, because 30, but I was wanting to go another 10 years. But boy, this took a toll on all of us, and I don't know if we quantify what that did to all of us. But in our state, we were told you have to mask, you have to do all this stuff, and distancing, the cleaning. Some of the things that we'll continue doing are things like we're at making sure our spaces were clean, that we continue to fog, because we found that the sickness went down so much during that time, and kids way up, because we're one of those districts that we only missed about 6 weeks of school and 1 year, and we were in person for the last, we never did really go. So we really only had to do that distance learning for about 6 weeks. That, even though we have the distance learning things in place, the snow kids are going to go out and play and be kids. But I really, the limits of our system. And in Colorado, if you don't follow these rules and something bad happens, then you waive your governmental immunity, held liable, as well as your school board members, your principals, and anybody who willfully and wantonly. So I was one of those guys that tried to do the right thing and make sure that people social distance. We put the signs everywhere. We did everything we should have done. I found that some of my colleagues did not, and that was frustrating. And I found that our health department doesn't have as much pull as it should, and frustrating time for me. Don't hope we never have to go back to anything. But I do have to give a huge shout out to our educators and our students. A bad situation. I believe schools were doing some of the best work we've ever done in our existence, and we continue to get beat down in the public eye, and we continue all these accountability things put on us when we have real odds again. But I got to give a shout out to our staff, our teachers, our custodians, because they were very supportive through the whole thing. And I really found connections you make through adversity stick with you. And I really appreciate all of that. So really, that's what it comes down to for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Rob.
One of the things that we did great here in Cation said, hey, we're going to get 1,000 teachers, principals, and they created the plan for reopening and transitioning both to, and then in the fall when we reopen. And here locally, we asked our teachers to digital plan then from that information, our community members too. And so here at USD for empower your people, you give them a voice, right? The craziest times that we've never been able to be. You can find success, and we had very little. We had very little of our community or mass or no mass. I mean, more that we educated, the more that we empowered our people to have successful we were. And so I think that's the biggest thing that time is how can you then transition strategic planning, goal setting, is make sure we have that empower our people, community members, and even our kids, ESSER funds, decisions to really impact your district and your schools.
2022, 2023 planning coming out of post-COVID was a huge job for any superintendent in any district. I'll tell you right now, because, kids are re-regulating, they're coming back. You had a partial year last year, normalcy in the classroom. You've got pieces of the puzzle that are jagged, trying to make sense of what's going on. This year being a full year coming back, my first question I'm going to throw to you guys is, how do you calibrate your administrative teams to be on the same page and to have systems in place that are just going to support growth and learning of educators? Think about that for a second, because you're in an organizational hierarchy. What you do, your strategic planning, your mapping of what you do is going to trickle down. It's going to be part of the overall goals of your entire district. Talk about that for a second and how you feel your administrative teams can use you as a support guide for them to carry the torch forward. So that's a big part of planning for you guys, I'm sure. Not only that, from school boards and state level stuff, but making sure your admin teams are ready to go to take care of the teachers and students in your schools. Talk about that for a minute from your planning purpose. Let's start off with Rob.
Well, being that I was in a different day, so I can't really speak for Fort Morgan at the moment. Much smaller school district before, principals at the time. Now I have 9 principals and much larger system. Well together in terms of putting a good plan together to make sure. The bottom line was we just, man, we wanted to be live, and we didn't feel like it would have been beneficial for my community. Would not have allowed that. So we had to have found a way to make a lot of time together, growing together, learning together. One of the things that came out of the CDC, trying to take a common sense approach to things, put together a really solid plan as far as, on day one, this is what it's going to look like. We went back to the drawing board. We figured it out. We spent that first weeks with no athletics and no activities because of the way things went. And then all of a sudden, we about halfway through the year, we got all the activities back. And so we had to develop another yet in the gym and, at football games, things like that. Us together as a group in order to make sure that we best way we could. There are a lot of days I felt really bad for them because the year they didn't get to do the things they normally did, and that was really hard for me to watch and hard for them. The cafeteria being off limits, and that was one. But I think the teachers and students just really rallied around it. They knew there was nothing we could do. The parents were pretty good about it for the most part. But there's a cohesive group and continued that. And I still, to this day, am still friends with the people that I left out in Marino. And I have to say that when I came, I'm sure they went through the same processes, and some of those things are still in place here, and it's in the world of the people that I have around me.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you sharing that. Let's go down to Ron.
As our strategic plan, obviously, to drive that happens for us a lot of times. Spring, as you transition that spring and it's higher staffs together, that's when we start having our conversation here and getting everybody aligned and talking. How does that align it with things? We've got 4 men up in the whole child early future, investing in our people, and if we could focus on those 4 things, and even in our board meetings, for example, if those topics, man, we highlighted it. If it's PD or back to school in service, we're going to do with that back into an opportunity, and so it's in the forefront of our traders. We also have an accreditation process here is into those 4 areas as well. And accreditation model, you align your strategic plan, you align administrative vision and goals, and building level. It all connects to each other. And it just makes those building leaders then to be successful. The other thing that I learned from a mentor of mine too, when I was a AD, is they took our strategic plan, had each one of our administrators be either a champion or co-champion of that goal, that strategic. That allowed the principals then really to be the driver of that goal throughout the entire district. As we've rolled into this strategic other thing to keep in mind for district level leaders too, and how to kind of tie those things together and prepare for the future.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it. Cindy.
She's frozen. She's coming back.
She's going to come back. We'll catch Cindy on the other side of that. I'm always interested to hear, and I'm glad with Rob and Ron still here and Cindy coming back, how you empower your administrators to stay the course, because, you're the head coach, and that's the way I look at the superintendent. I mean, I spent 12 years as a head boys basketball coach. Teachers, you're a head coach in your classroom. We all have that coaching instinct. So, I mean, and just go back a little bit here. How did you maintain the mojo for your administrative teams? That's so hard to do because they look at you for that. Either one. Ron, we'll go Ron first.
Yeah, I'll start. It was hard. I think I burned the candle on all ends. I think spring last year, I kind of lost my own mojo because I did all the energy trying to keep everybody else up during the last couple. So I had to have that self-reflective piece for me. But principals every Monday, we Zoom or FaceTime. We have just to check in. Hey, what can I help with? What's on the schedule this week? What you know, and so that communication, constantly, especially to lay the groundwork, I can kind of get a row, and especially know if they've got some schedules ahead, whether it's evaluations, let alone that go on with schools and sports and activities, anything else. And so that's my main focus in the week. Spend about 15, 20 minutes with each one. I'm lucky, you know, I'm not in a large district where most in your district, but that person's that trust, that connection, and that support.
That's good stuff, man. I love to hear that. Rob, quick.
So I live in a community, or it's very, very conservative, very anti-mask, didn't believe COVID was those kinds of things. But what I really leaned on it is both of my administrators pretty skeptical of the whole masking thing, and so it was a little more difficult. I also knew that we needed to do what we had to do in order to keep kids in front of us. And so one of them was we just finished about 3 years worth of work with visible learning, and that's the work of John. And when you look at the effect sizes of strategies, I think it would the highest effect sizes is just collective efficacy, and that is just the belief as a group can accomplish some great things. And we just kept, you know, regardless of how we personally felt about things, we are in, and we needed to make sure that we set an example, and we need to make sure that we did the right thing. So we may not have agreed necessarily with everything, but we were going to do the right things, and that the only way we were going to get through this was together. And we trickled that down to our community, and I really believe that that's what got us through.
It's good. That's good stuff right there as well. Cindy, going back to that 2022, 2023 planning, coming out of the gate, supporting administrators, ensuring that the roadmap for success is in place. What did that look like for you in your district? Oh, Cindy, we can't hear you. So you might want to log out for 1 second, come back on. I know you came back on once. Give that a shot. And that's okay, because you know what? Technology is there for us. It works at times. Other times we just have to be patient to allow it to work. So while you log out, log back in, I'll kick it back up to Josh. And Josh will go to that next question. We'll come back to Cindy on that.
So gentlemen, right now, we already started 22-23. We're about to go into our first report card. We're about to finish here in North Dallas. The first 9 weeks is almost done. I know that we opened up at different parts of the country, different times. So what have you guys, how has your year been with all the experience that you've had the past with the nonsense we faced? What about this year right now? Because that last year was very difficult. It was very draining, spiritually and physically. So Rob, how's your year starting?
Well, I have to say it's been re-energizing for me after being twice. And then going into an interview and fooling. I didn't fool. Again, getting the job. Really enjoyed coming over to the principal here before, about 14 years ago, and getting in, it just re-energized me in my career, my outlook, about being a part of the Morgan County family, and you know, so say is that what I do notice is that, you know, kids in the elementary and particularly, I don't believe we're back to that full ability to belong and work together anymore, because or quite yet, because they spent so much being, you know, out of school, or they were separated from family. Even when we were in school, there was still not a lot of travel, not a lot of seeing some effects, long-term effects of that, which then leads to some discipline. Probably have experienced a little bit as well, and then also that just the military kids has been really difficult to watch, and so we try to model, but we're finding that for the most part, kids just like structure, and they like whether they tell you that or they don't tell you that, they want structure to know what to expect. And so we're providing that for so I feel really good about where we're at right now.
Yeah, so here at USD, we started off the year, we knew that we needed a little pick-me-up, so and did our convocation, I guess, in larger district, and really brought the energy, brought some new ideas. Spent a half a day with us here, and just was really to experience something that a lot of them, that you like going to conferences. I heard in a previous podcast, you like to learn stuff, right? And so, I do too. But so we wanted to bring that to them this year to really start with a bang. Our kids are maybe a little bit behind. We got work. They're killing it. I the work that they're doing, they realize it too. They know, maybe they need a little more vertical alignment. They need more time to look at the best decisions they can to impact the learning, get it grades. We know math got hurt out of everything. You need those skill sets, right? Are we better in scores wise that we followed? We used USD 440, but we also targeted where impacted the most last summer, and we did this summer school to try to help. So we're excited as we get into this first stage of fast bridge testing through as we started the school year. And so our really good year. Our parents have been engaged and for where we're at right now.
Guys, I'm going to take this opportunity to just kind of tap into both of you a little bit about what you look for in administrators when they join your team. Just the simple things, because as a head coach, you want to surround yourself with people that think like you, but don't have to be like you, because that allows the autonomy of growth within your organization. So when you're going to hire somebody, let's start with you, Rob. What are you looking for when you're building your team? Just like 2 or 3 things.
I actually had the opportunity to hire a new special ed director and 2 elementary principals started. So the district allowed me to do that. And so what I look for I really want somebody who's not a yes man. I want somebody who's going to come in and get a bad idea before it rolls out. Because I'd much rather look silly in front of it. And so I need someone I can trust, someone that I can. We did hire 2 phenomenal elementary principals, and one of them had incredible extensive knowledge in special education, which I needed because we have that has an education life program that she ended up in. Got another one that we've got a dual immersion, phenomenal there, doing a really great job, and I look for that leadership to look at me and question some of the things I do behind closed. But when we come out, we get along, and life is good, and we move forward. We don't. There's. I look for people who want to go from point A to point B. The path from point A to point B is not always a straight line.
Good points, Rob. Thanks. Ron, from you, your perspective.
So definitely number one thing is relationships. I think it doesn't matter whether it's kids, community members, they've got to be relationship focused, right? Which ties me into the communicate. % of the world's problems happen because of miscommunication or lack of communication, and it doesn't matter if it's in our jobs or our relationship. I get in trouble sometimes with that miscommunicate. So I want a communicator, and then I think young in my admin career was the more practitioner that allowed me then to continue to grow. And if I could find that that they have that ability to remove themselves from this picture, understand, empathize, and understand where other people want to maybe grow as a professional, somebody that will fit no matter what, elementary, middle, high, they'll fit into anything.
Thanks, Ron. Cindy, back to you. Going back to 2022, 2023, planning, top priorities for your administrative team, what that looks like. Let's see if that microphone's working at this point.
Can you all hear me?
Boom, you got it. You're on.
Okay, let's 20th time is the charm. It's been that many times. So I think the main priorities have been to not only get back to where the trajectory of where Ector County was heading when the pandemic began, but our superintendent, Dr. Murray, his theme for the year is bigger, bolder, and better. And absolutely that is exactly the mindset of how everyone is coming back, bigger, bolder, and better. We had limited learning loss during the pandemic, thankfully, as data came out last year. And so the main thing was
The one thing we can't control is bandwidth. Okay. That's the only thing we can't control here.
jumping back.
All right, Josh, kicking over to you for your question.
But
I think that Odessa oil money dried up.
We're definitely going to figure that one out. Hold on.
Okay, hey gentlemen, real quick, Martin Silverman in his podcast talks about the second question in his interviews, and I think it's crucial that somebody that sits at your lens. Let's go back into you, because you know what, the best way that people can ever connect with us is learning about us as individuals. And so I'd like to ask you a question, Ron. Who was your most exciting, best teacher you ever had, and why?
Oh, wow. I was a military kid, and so I moved every 2 years across the country, and there was a math teacher, Mr. Zeman, when we moved from Georgia to Minnesota. He really connected with me, and when you're coming from different states, and this is before common being taught in Georgia isn't always what's being taught. So having that individual really spent with me, academically, but more importantly, a lot of these kids been growing up together years and years. You're talking about jumping into eighth grade, which as a student, as you guys know, socially, academically, and Mr. Zeman really put me under his care in both, and provided me opportunities within the academic realm, but even on the outside of sports and football, and but then even I remember doing fundraiser and for the floods that were of the Mississippi up there, and so what the devastation. Let's bring you along, and it allowed me to really connect with us. It's people like him that had the greatest impact on with me as now an educator impacting others.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that story. Rob, who connected with you? Who was your favorite teacher? Why?
Well, I guess the way our all teach at some level, and so I there's definitely some in my school junior high years that were certainly influential, and Drzuloff, and phenomenal social studies teacher that I had in high school and in Longmont College. The teacher I had that I think was probably the best person to teach me how to be was Mr. Rene Garza. He was my first principal down in South Texas, West Go Independent. He taught me how important it was to connect with treat people that work for you. I've always, and that is that I don't, as a superintendent of schools, I feel like for the students and the staff, I don't work for I mean, I do work for the board, but I try to create an environment just like Mr. Gard, welcoming that so we're in the middle of right now discussing this whole 4-day week, and we would be one of the second largest schools in the state to go to a 4-day week if we. And my principals came to me and they said, "So what do you think is going to happen?" I said, I really can't school board votes on that. That's their decision. I can only provide them with the information that I with, and then they have to make that decision. But the one thing we can control as adults is the culture and how we treat people. And we want to create a place where people want to be versus where they have to be. We want to make connections on every level with our staff to make sure that we have a family. And that's what Mr. Garza taught me. We had a great for 2 years. And every time I get into some kind of stuff, what would Mr. Garza do in this situation? So phenomenal individual.
I'm going to just throw a curveball at you guys for a second. And what I'm looking to ask you is if there's a sitting principal out there listening to this and they want to have that move to the next level, what inspired you to want to go from leadership from a building level to an organizational chair? What's the biggest, and you know what, we can all say, hey, there's a bigger price tag with that. There's more money, better retirement, all those type of things. We all chase that. But there's a price you pay because you leave being with kids to leave managing an organization and connecting with state level constituents. Okay. You got to have a mindset to be able to grasp that and run with that because you're more isolated. So what would you say if you were talking to those principals looking to make that next step? And why don't we start with Ron first?
Being a middle level principal, you see the disconnect or the connection, depending on where you're between the elementary, and then yourselves, and then there's that middle child syndrome, I think too. But it helped me bring, I saw somebody who was a high school social studies teacher, coach, been high school athletic director, assistant principal, that younger age group experience. And we have a unique pre-K, 4 through 8 building, and that's before that, right? And so you dabble a little bit in you got the middle school, the junior high level as well. Is a leader, the importance of having who could connect all 3 buildings, who could connect pre-K through 12, how it all works together. It's kind of intrigued me. Being able to the outside of the box thinking ideas that I had, they could apply at a district level when you bring buildings together. And so that was kind of why I chose to do it. I'm bored with it. I wanted to create that innovation levels and really allow them to grow with one another. And then you throw into, like you're saying, you've got the political side. You need to have somebody out there who has a willingness to impact what is be reality, but it's not, right? And have that tough skin to really be able to step things really are. And so I've been blessed to have a level or state level too to have a voice, and that really excites me. As the old social studies teacher with high school seniors in Kansas, right? I feel like expertise back into this role too, and so it's a combination of that curriculum, the different the bigger narrative for both too.
You know, Ron, I kind of smile because I was a high school social studies teacher for 12 years, high school boys basketball coach for 12 years, assistant athletic director, assistant middle school principal for the last 16 years. So I get it, man. I get it. That's that next trajectory. But going from middle school principal to superintendency is a tough sell sometimes because they're always looking for the people with the high school experience. It's like the top of the echelon. So it makes it kind of interesting to see that you migrated through that and get to that level. So great stuff, man. There. How about you, Rob?
I don't know exactly why I did it. I suppose. I think
You wanted to go skiing in Colorado. You left Reno. I love
Yeah.
Reno. It's a great town. Great city, I should say.
Well, yeah, I was trying to. So my high school principal out in Marino, he took over the gym, and I tried to give him some words of wisdom, and that is that you still have one more line of defense, and you're not the final. In as a superintendent, you don't know the job, and everyone sits in their room that I could do that until they get the job and their name's on the door.
That's right.
And then they say, "Oh my God, I had." And my wife the other day, I've taken all these phones. Recently got remarried, and she had to hear all the things. She said, "I had no idea superintendent schools dealt with all that stuff." But I think as I look back, I like being that guy that's the final say. I like being that person that blame for when things go wrong and be able to dish out the commendation to other people when they get to be the leader of people. And I think that's what led me coaching basketball, led me to that wanting more. And I not only make the school system that I was in better, but also on the state level where I work with my state legislators on the School Finance Act. We go. We're working on accountability stuff right now to really do the state of Colorado. And so I get very active, and I feel like superintendent's chair gives me the ability to impact not just the students in my district, but it gives across the state of Colorado.
Hey, Dean,
Great answer.
I got something to add. So when I was working, I started my doctorate degree. I was 2 years old, and I was assistant principal athletic director. A really good mentor, a really good superintendent who's a successful district level leader could be like. Next to me, he said, Ron, you get monthly meetings with us, right? He said, you're done with your doctor. He helped inspire me to start. And I said, well, I don't know. He said, you're going to be the only in Kansas with a doctorate degree, the only with a doctorate degree. I was like, I want to do something different, maybe something else. And that's my first step as a middle school. I think part of it too is you've got to have a mentor who are going to have an impact on you that you don't even see in yourself, an ability, right? You can model after and say, hey, that's too. And I think out of that core group, the administration we had there, I believe 10, 11 of us, I believe 6, 7 are now district level leaders or superintendents group from that one superintendent. And so I think somebody like that, right, is going to be whoever that middle principal, that high school principal, elementary, try something different. Have somebody like connect with somebody. That's what we're doing here, right? In your PLN that you can connect with to help push, really help understand what this job is, because every day is different, just like administrator, but times. And so, so find a person that helps see something in you besides maybe.
I love that you say that because I don't care what anybody says here listening to us tonight. We're in the people business. And if you don't have people skills, you're not going to be successful at your seat at the superintendent, my seat as a principal, your seat as a teacher. It will come back to bite you. So that's the number one thing we have to understand and cultivate that, celebrate that, and just take that to a whole new level. I love hearing that, guys. I'm so happy for both you guys, your success stories there. Josh, why don't you take us home?
The other day, and I was like hearing Mike Tyson, and he said exactly what Rob said. He heard Bruce Seldon say, "Oh, I got a plan for Mike Tyson." And Mike Tyson responded, "Well, he didn't have a plan after I hit him the first time in the mouth." So everyone thinks they have a plan sitting in that chair. Like those fans with a head football coach when they're losing by 1 point.
Monday morning quarterback.
Or that Joe Six-Pack out in the street that would have done differently for a principal. We understand that. Guys, we love you, community members. Just understand that when you get the chair, that's some serious fire at all different levels. And stopping there with Rob and Ron, thank you for sharing your knowledge today. Thank you for bringing your experience today because that's what makes us grow stronger together. Hearing your stories about your vision, your experiences have made us stronger today. People that see this on the rebroadcast, please give us your opinion. Give us your point of view, like and share, because you know what? This is free PD for everybody. Someone in Hawaii can learn about this. Someone in Idaho can learn from these two gentlemen. And Ms. Retana also from Odessa. But you know what? Ultimately, one thing, it's the red zone. And you know what, Dean? We scored a touchdown again. We went up the A gap. We did a dive, and we scored a touchdown. Successful learning for everybody. Thank you for being here, Rob. Thank you for being here, Ron. And don't forget, this Sunday, El Jefe joins us at the flagship show, 7 p.m. Principal Cafele, part of the Fantastic Four, will be our guest this Sunday. So join us, be there or be square. Thank you for being at the Red Zone.
Hey, just one more thing I got to say, regards to everybody on this screen right here. If you make every decision based upon the best interest of kids, you're never going to go wrong. You can put your head on your pillow at night, whether you're a superintendent, principal, teacher, it doesn't matter. Adjust, adapt, and make your school that type of school. Guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Everybody out there, have a great week. Enjoy yourself, and make sure those kids are number one on your list.